Nobody expected this to happen, not like this. What started as a shocking headline, Offset getting shot outside a luxury casino, quickly turned into something far more complicated, far more personal, and far more dangerous than anyone anticipated. At first, it looked like just another breaking story, another chaotic moment involving celebrities, one that would trend for a few days and then fade away. But that's not what happened, because within hours everything changed. The shooting itself, what should have been the center of attention, almost became secondary, not because it wasn't serious, but because what happened afterward completely flipped the narrative in a way no one saw coming. When people assumed the situation would quiet down, that things would move into legal updates and recovery news, something unexpected happened. Lil Tjay walked out of jail, and instead of staying quiet, instead of laying low, instead of acting like someone caught up in a serious situation, he went straight to the internet. What followed was explosive. He didn't just respond. He didn't just defend himself. He dropped a statement so direct, so controversial, that it instantly divided the entire hip-hop community. He called Offset a rat. Now that word isn't casual, especially not in hip-hop culture. It's not just an insult you throw around lightly. It carries weight. It implies betrayal, cooperation, crossing a line that for many is considered unforgivable. And just like that, the focus of the entire story shifted. This wasn't just about a shooting anymore. It became about reputation, respect, and something much deeper than what happened in that parking lot. But what made it even more intense was that Lil Tjay didn't stop at just the accusation. He described a moment. According to him, right before everything escalated, Offset allegedly pointed in his direction and told authorities, "That's the one." Now pause for a second. Because if that claim holds any truth, if even part of it is accurate, then this story changes completely. Suddenly, the question isn't just who pulled the trigger. The question becomes, what happened after the shot was fired? What did Offset do in that moment? And how does that impact how people see him going forward? The internet didn't wait for answers. It did what it always does. It chose sides. Some people defended Offset immediately. They argued that if he identified someone in the chaos, that's a normal reaction, a victim trying to make sense of a dangerous situation. Others weren't so forgiving. They said there are lines you don't cross, that no matter the circumstances, certain actions come with consequences, especially in a culture where loyalty and silence are valued above everything. And just like that, the narrative split in two. On one side, survival instinct doing what anyone would do. On the other, betrayal, reputation damage, and a move that could change everything about how Offset is perceived. But here's where it gets even more complicated. Because to really understand how things reached this point, you have to go back. Before the shooting, before the arrest, before the word rat started trending across social media. This didn't start in a casino parking lot. It didn't start with one argument. And it definitely didn't happen overnight. This story had been building for months. Slowly at first, quietly, then very publicly. At the center of it all is Offset, a name that carries serious weight in the industry. A key member of Migos, a group that dominated charts, influenced culture, and built a legacy that few could match. He wasn't new to controversy. He had faced public drama before, personal struggles, industry pressure. But this felt different, because behind the image of success, there were signs that something wasn't right. Whispers started circulating, not loudly, but consistently. People talked about pressure, stress, and more importantly, money issues. At first, those rumors stayed in the background, easy to ignore, easy to dismiss as speculation. But then something happened that brought everything into the spotlight. Lil Tjay entered the picture. Initially, it didn't seem serious. Just another rapper talking. Another live stream moment. Something that would come and go. But then the tone changed, and everything escalated. During a live stream in front of thousands of viewers, Lil Tjay didn't just mention Offset, he exposed him. At least, that's how the internet interpreted it. He made claims that hit hard. Claims that challenged Offset's image in a way that couldn't be ignored. According to him, Offset, someone many saw as untouchable, was struggling inside a casino. Not just losing money, but allegedly asking others for money to keep gambling. Now think about that. A global rap star, someone with status, influence, and wealth, being described as walking around a casino asking for cash. It didn't sound believable. But the way Lil Tjay told the story made it feel real. Detailed. Specific. Hey see. Claimed he gave Offset money. Not just once. Multiple times. First a few thousand. Then more. And according to him, he never got it back. Now whether that story was true didn't even matter at that point. Because once it hit the internet, the damage was already done. In hip-hop culture, respect is everything. And being publicly labeled as broke, especially by another artist, isn't just embarrassing. It's dangerous. It affects perception. It shifts power. And Lil Tjay didn't stop there. He continued posting. Subtle shots. Not so subtle shots. Flexing jewelry. Making comments that didn't always mention Offset directly, but didn't need to. Everyone knew who he was talking about. And with every post, the tension grew. Fans started paying closer attention. The situation was no longer just background noise. It became a storyline, a rivalry, a build-up that felt like it was heading somewhere. Then came Offset's response. But it wasn't what people expected. He didn't clearly deny the claims. He didn't come out with a direct statement saying, "This isn't true." Instead, he took a different approach. He challenged Lil Tjay, called him out, told him to meet face to face, even suggested going live together to settle things publicly. And that changed everything. Because now, this wasn't just online talk anymore. It wasn't just clips and comments. It became real. Two rappers, two egos, two reputations on the line, and neither one backing down. But there was one detail that stood out more than anything else. Offset never clearly addressed the debt allegations. He didn't confirm them, but he didn't fully deny them either. Instead, he focused on attacking Lil Tjay's credibility, his career, his image, and for fans watching, that felt off. Some saw it as deflection, others saw it as strategy. But either way, it raised questions. Because when someone avoids a direct answer, people notice. And in this case, people started connecting dots. Now, the story wasn't just about accusations. It became about perception, about what was true, what wasn't, and what might be somewhere in between. And as all of this unfolded publicly, through live streams, posts, and reactions, the tension kept building. Every interaction added fuel. Every response made things more intense. Until eventually, everything reached that moment. That night, that parking lot, that confrontation, and the gunshot that changed everything. But by the time that shot was fired, this was never going to be just a random incident. Too much had already happened. Too much had already been said. Too many emotions were already involved. And that's what makes this situation so complicated. Because the shooting wasn't the beginning. It was the breaking point. The moment where everything that had been building, quietly and publicly, finally collided. And even now, with all the attention, all the theories, and all the speculation, one thing remains unclear. What part of this story is actually true? And what part is just the internet trying to make sense of something far more complicated than it appears? What started as a simple back and forth between two artists didn't stay simple for long. Because this was never just about money. It became about humiliation. About a younger artist publicly calling out a bigger name and not backing down. And in situations like that, things don't just disappear. They don't quietly fade into the background. They build, slowly at first, then louder, then more intense, until eventually something gives. And that's exactly what happened here. As time passed, it became clear this situation wasn't cooling off at all. Lil Tjay kept bringing it up in different ways, through posts, through comments, through subtle jabs that weren't really subtle at all. Meanwhile, Offset responded in his own style, indirect at times, direct at others, but never fully stepping away from the tension. The energy between them didn't disappear. It just went quiet. And sometimes that's worse. Because when things go quiet like that, it usually means something is building behind the scenes. Something bigger. Something people don't see coming until it's already too late. Then came the detail that made everything feel almost unreal. The place where the tension reportedly started, a casino. The place where the alleged money issues happened, a casino. And the place where everything finally exploded, a casino valet area. Out of all the places it could have happened, it circled back to the same kind of setting. And to a lot of people watching from the outside, that didn't feel like coincidence anymore. It felt connected. Like everything had been leading to that exact moment. So when Offset and Lil Tjay crossed paths again that night, this wasn't random. These weren't strangers arguing over nothing. This was history. Tension, ego, disrespect, all colliding at once. And once that confrontation started, there was no easy way out, no calm resolution, no stepping back. Because both sides had too much on line, too much pride, too much pressure. And that's how situations like this spiral. Not in a single second, but in moments that build over time. Moments shaped by months of frustration, public embarrassment, and unresolved conflict. Until one night, one argument, one wrong move, changes everything. That night, it didn't just end in words. It didn't just end in a fight. It ended in a gunshot. And what happened next was something nobody was prepared for. Everything exploded, not online, not in interviews, not in comments, but in real life. The setting was almost surreal. A Florida casino valet area. Bright lights reflecting off expensive cars. People moving in and out like it was just another normal night. On the surface, everything looked routine. But underneath that normal atmosphere, tension was already there. And the moment they saw each other, everything shifted. Witnesses later described it as starting with words. Sharp, direct, personal. The kind of words that don't come out of nowhere. They come from built-up frustration. From disrespect that's been sitting unresolved. From things said online that now had to be answered face to face. It wasn't just conversation. It was confrontation. And you could feel it building. Because by this point, it wasn't about money anymore. It was about pride, about reputation, about everything that had been said publicly, now being brought into real life. And once it reached that level, there was no going back. The argument escalated quickly. Voices got louder. People nearby started noticing. Then gathering. Phones came out, because when two well-known names start clashing like that, everyone knows something is about to happen. Then it turned physical. A shove. A swing. Suddenly chaos. Security tried to step in. People backed away. And right in the middle of it, all were two individuals who had been going at each other for months, now face to face, with nothing holding them back. For a moment, it looked like something people had seen before. A messy public fight. The kind that usually gets broken up. The kind that ends with people walking away. But this time, it didn't. Because out of nowhere, a gunshot rang out. Everything froze for a split second. Then everything exploded. Screaming, running, confusion. Nobody knew where the shot came from. Nobody knew who fired it. All anyone knew in that moment was one thing. Offset had been hit. And just like that, the entire situation changed. What started as an argument instantly became something far more serious, far more dangerous. Within minutes, emergency responders arrived. Police moved in and secured the area. People were pushed back. The scene was locked down. And Offset was rushed away for medical attention. Alive but injured. And while all of this was unfolding in real life, something else was happening at the same time. The internet was already going into overdrive. Videos started surfacing almost immediately. Clips of the argument, clips of the fight, moments leading up to the gunshot. People began analyzing everything, frame by frame, trying to figure out what actually happened. And that's when the first narrative formed. Because in those clips, some viewers believed they recognized someone. And one name started spreading faster than anything else. Lil Tjay. Within minutes, the story took shape. Clear, simple, explosive. Lil Tjay shot Offset. It made sense, at least on the surface. They had history. They had tension. They had just been seen fighting. So people connected the dots. The internet ran with it. Headlines formed instantly. Beef turns violent. Casino fight ends in shooting. But then came the twist. The first real crack in the story. Because when official reports started coming out, they didn't match what people were saying online. Not even close. Yes, Lil Tjay had been detained. Yes, he was involved in the altercation. But when the charges were revealed, everything changed. There were no attempted murder charges. No firearm-related charges. Nothing linking him directly to the shooting itself. Instead, the only charge mentioned was minor, disorderly conduct. A misdemeanor. That was it. And just like that, the entire narrative collapsed. Because the person everyone had already blamed wasn't being charged for the act they were accused of. So now the situation became even more confusing. Because if Lil Tjay didn't shoot him, then who did? And more importantly, why? That's when the story shifted again. From chaotic to completely unclear. Because now there were more questions than answers. Reports mentioned that another individual had been detained. But again, no major charges. No clear suspect. No definitive explanation. Authorities confirmed that the investigation was still ongoing. Which meant one thing. The truth wasn't out yet. And until it was, everything else was just speculation. But that didn't stop people. If anything, it made things worse. Because now, without clear answers, the internet filled in the gaps. Theories multiplied. Some focused on the fight itself. Others looked at the bigger picture, the history, the tension, the buildup. Some believed it was a random escalation. Others believed it was something more intentional. It wasn't about the shooting anymore. It was about what happened after. About whether Offset's actions, if the accusation was even true, were justified or not. And right in the middle of all that chaos, Offset said nothing. No statement. No denial. No clarification. Nothing. And that silence, it made everything louder. Because now, the internet wasn't just reacting to what was said. It was reacting to what wasn't said. And in situations like this, silence doesn't calm things down. It amplifies everything. Then things escalated even further. Because the moment Lil Tjay made that accusation, the internet didn't just react, it exploded. Clips spread across every platform. Millions of views within hours. People replaying the statement again and again. Breaking down every word. Every detail. Every implication. This wasn't gossip anymore. This was a full-blown cultural moment. Because if you understand hip-hop, you understand why this hit so hard. Being accused of snitching isn't something that fades away. It sticks. It becomes part of your identity in the eyes of the public, whether it's true or not. And Lil Tjay knew exactly what he was doing. Because he didn't just drop the accusation and move on. He doubled down. He continued describing the situation. He painted a picture of that moment, chaotic, intense, fast-moving. And in that chaos, he claimed Offset pointed him out. Again, whether that claim was accurate or not almost stopped mattering. Because once the idea entered the public conversation, it took on a life of its own. And just like that, the narrative shifted once more. From Offset got shot to Offset snitched after getting shot. And that shift was brutal. Because now, people weren't just discussing the incident. They were judging it, debating it, arguing over it, picking sides. But then another question started creeping in. A question that made everything even more complicated. If Lil Tjay wasn't charged with the shooting, then why would Offset point at him? Why not identify the actual shooter? Why not stay silent? Why not wait? That gap in the story created even more confusion. And confusion fuels speculation. Suddenly, multiple possibilities started circulating. Maybe Offset was confused in the moment. Maybe he reacted instinctively. Maybe he genuinely believed Lil Tjay was involved. Or maybe there's still something the public doesn't know. And that uncertainty kept the story alive. Because every theory led to another. Every explanation opened the door to a different interpretation. Some people stayed grounded in logic. They argued that if someone gets shot, they're going to say what they saw or what they think they saw. That it's not about culture in that moment, it's about survival. Others weren't convinced. They insisted that no matter the situation, certain rules don't change. And just like that, the internet split into two clear sides. One defending Offset, one turning against him. The arguments didn't stop. Comment sections became battlegrounds. Fans went back and forth, bringing up old interviews, past lyrics, previous situations, anything that could support their side of the argument. It wasn't just discussion anymore. It was debate. Constant, intense, unending. And then the media stepped in. Headlines started appearing everywhere. More aggressive, more dramatic, more suggestive. Offset accused of snitching after shooting. Lil Tjay exposes what really happened. Did Offset cross the line? Each headline added more pressure, more attention, more fuel to an already uncontrollable fire. And still no response from Offset. No statement to confirm. No denial to shut things down. Just silence. And that silence became part of the story itself. Because people weren't just reacting to the accusation anymore. They were reacting to the absence of a response. And in situations like this, silence can feel like confirmation, even when it's not. Meanwhile, voices from within the industry started to surface. Not loudly, not directly, but subtly. A like on a post, a repost of a clip, a vague comment that didn't name names but hinted at awareness. And even those small actions carried weight. Because in a moment like this, people pay attention to everything. Not just what's said, but what's implied, and what's left unsaid. Which brings everything back to the same unresolved tension. A shooting with no clear shooter. An accusation with no confirmation. A narrative that keeps shifting. And a truth that's still somewhere in the middle of it all. Because at this point, the story isn't just about what happened. It's about what people believe happened. And until something concrete comes out, that belief is going to keep shaping the narrative. What made the situation even more intense wasn't just what people were saying. It was how people were reacting without saying anything at all. Subtle signals started appearing across social media. A vague comment here. A quiet repost there. Nothing direct, nothing that mentioned names. But people noticed. Because when major figures stay silent publicly but react quietly, it often speaks louder than any statement ever could. And fans, they pick up on everything. Then came one of the most emotional moments in the entire situation. Quavo posted a single emoji. Just prayer hands. Nothing else. No caption. No explanation. But for fans, that moment hit differently. Because by this point, this wasn't just about Offset getting shot anymore. It was about everything that came before it. The history, the losses, the trauma that Migos had already endured. And suddenly, the situation felt heavier. More serious. More real. People weren't just watching drama unfold. They were watching what felt like patterns repeating. And nobody wanted to see that happen again. But just when it seemed like things couldn't get any more layered, another detail started gaining attention. And this one didn't involve the shooting directly. It involved what might still be hidden. Because according to various reports and ongoing speculation, there could be more footage, more angles, more clips that haven't been released yet. And that idea alone was enough to keep people locked in. Refreshing timelines, watching for updates, waiting for something new to drop. Because at this point, nobody felt like they had the full story. Not the fans, not the media, and maybe not even the people involved, at least not publicly. And that's what made everything feel so unstable, so unpredictable, so unfinished. Because when a story has this many gaps, this many unanswered questions, it doesn't end. It evolves. And right now, this situation was still evolving, still shifting, still building towards something bigger. One thing was clear. The shooting was just the beginning. The arrest was just the first twist. And the snitch accusation, that was the explosion. But whatever comes next, that might be the part that changes everything. At this point, the story wasn't just viral. It was unavoidable. No matter where you looked, whether it was TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, or X, the same debate was happening over and over again. Not just about the shooting, but about what came after. Because the moment Lil Tjay called Offset a rat, everything changed. The reactions were intense, and they weren't neutral. People weren't just asking questions anymore. They were judging. Hard. On one side, you had those defending Offset, and they were loud about it. To them, the situation was simple. A man got shot. Police arrived. He reacted. That's it. They argued that in a moment of chaos, survival comes first. Instinct takes over. And expecting someone to follow an unwritten code in that moment didn't make sense to them. Their posts spread quickly. Thousands of likes. Millions of views. Because for a lot of people, that perspective felt logical. Real. Human. But then there was the other side. And they weren't holding back either. Because for them, this wasn't about logic. It was about principles. About a code that in their eyes doesn't change, no matter the situation. To them, certain lines don't move. And if those lines are crossed, there are consequences. They didn't see it as a reaction. They saw it as a violation. And their voices were just as loud, just as passionate, and just as convincing to the people who agreed with them. And just like that, the internet split cleanly in two. One side defending Offset, the other side turning on him. And the arguments didn't stop. Comment sections turned into battlegrounds. Threads stretched for thousands of replies. People dug up old interviews, old lyrics, past situations, trying to find evidence, trying to prove whether Offset had ever stood on certain principles before. Because now, everything he had ever said was being re-examined. Not casually, but critically. Meanwhile, Lil Tjay didn't step back. He kept talking, kept pushing the narrative, kept repeating the accusation. And every time he doubled down, it kept the controversy alive. Because whether people believed him or not, they were still listening. They were still watching. And in a situation like this, attention is everything. At the same time, the industry itself began reacting. But not in loud, obvious ways. In subtle ways. Calculated ways. Because stepping directly into something this messy carries risks. But ignoring it completely, that wasn't possible either. So instead, reactions came quietly. Through likes, through reposts, through indirect acknowledgement. And even those small moves carried weight. Because fans were watching everything. Then came another unexpected twist. Tekashi 6ix9ine entered the conversation. And if you know his reputation, you already understand what that meant. Because the moment he started posting, the tone if'd it again. He didn't approach it seriously. He trolled, posted provocative content, made comments that blurred the line between commentary and mockery. And suddenly, a situation that was already intense became unpredictable. For some people, that crossed a line. Because this wasn't just internet drama. This was a real-life situation involving violence. Someone had been shot. There were real consequences. But online, it started turning into entertainment. Memes, hot takes, clips edited for reactions, people trying to go viral off someone else's situation. And that made everything feel even more uncomfortable. Because at the center of all this noise, all this content, all this debate, there was still a real incident, a real injury, a real unresolved situation. And yet the truth remained unclear. Because despite all the footage, all the analysis, all the arguments, nobody actually knew exactly what happened that night. The investigation was still ongoing. The shooter hadn't been clearly identified. No definitive explanation had been given. And the only people who truly knew what went down, they weren't talking, at least not publicly. And that silence, it's what keeps everything alive. Because when there are no clear answers, speculation fills the space. And right now, there's no shortage of speculation. Everyone has a theory. Some believe Offset is completely innocent, not just in the shooting, but in everything that followed. Others believe he made a move that could seriously damage his reputation in the culture. And then there are those who think the biggest twist hasn't even happened yet. That there's still something hidden. Something that hasn't come out. Something that could flip the entire story again. And honestly, at this point, nothing would be surprising. Because this situation has already gone through multiple phases. A shooting, an accusation, a narrative shift, a cultural divide, and it still hasn't settled. It's still moving, still evolving, still building, and until the full truth comes out, if it ever does, this won't just be remembered as a single incident. It will be remembered as a moment where everything collided, where reality, perception, and culture all blurred together, and where the story kept changing faster than anyone could keep up. What started as a casino argument turned into a shooting. That shooting turned into an arrest. The arrest turned into accusations. And those accusations, they spiraled into a full-blown cultural debate that split the internet in half. And the craziest part, it still doesn't feel finished. Because every time a new detail drops, every time someone speaks, every time new footage surfaces, the entire story shifts again. Nothing about this situation feels settled. If anything, it feels like we're only at the beginning. Just when people thought they had analyzed everything, every clip, every rumor, every angle, one final detail started creeping into the conversation. And this detail didn't just add to the story. It flipped it completely. Because beneath all the noise, all the debates, all the viral takes, there's one uncomfortable truth people keep ignoring. The facts we actually have don't fully match the story being told online. Up until now, most of the narrative has been built on two major ideas. First, that Lil Tjay was responsible for the shooting. Second, that Offset got some form of revenge by pointing him out afterward. But what if neither of those things are actually true? It doesn't wait for facts. It builds its own version of the story. Which means what people believe right now might not be what actually happened. And that's why this situation still feels unfinished. Because the moment new footage drops, the moment police release more information, the moment either Offset or Lil Tjay breaks their silence, everything could flip again. Completely. The version of the story people are arguing about right now might not even matter anymore. So before picking a side, it's worth asking one simple question. Are you reacting to confirmed facts? Or to a narrative that hasn't been fully proven? Because right now, the truth is still unclear. And something about this situation suggests it's not over. Not even close. There's still more to come. More details. More revelations. Maybe even a twist nobody sees coming. And when that happens, everything we think we know could change again. So now it comes down to you. After everything, the shooting, the arrest, the accusations, the snitch claims, the silence, the confusion, what do you actually believe? Do you think Offset is simply a victim who did what anyone would do? Or do you think he crossed a line that could impact his reputation long-term? And what about Lil Tjay? Do you believe his version of events? Or do you think he's shaping the narrative to protect himself? Right now, the internet is divided, completely split. And until the full truth comes out, that division isn't going anywhere. So the real question as simple, which side are you on? Or are you willing to admit we still don't know enough to choose one.